Alright, buckle up, because this isn't a short story. This is my life, or at least a big chunk of it. And it's a tale about how trust can shatter like cheap glass. And how, sometimes, the hardest falls teach you to fly. I didn't see it coming, not even a flicker. Betrayal, they say, often sneaks in through the back door. From the people you least suspect. For me, it was Ethan. Ethan, my ride or die. The guy I'd known since we were kids building forts in his backyard. The friend who was practically blood. The guy who knew all my embarrassing stories. My secret ambitions. The stupid things I did trying to impress girls in high school, yeah, that Ethan. He held the map to my past. Shared my present. And we'd drawn out grand plans for the future together, scribbled on napkins in smoky bars. And then there was Sophia. Sophia, my fiancé. The woman I thought was my North Star. Beautiful, intelligent, with a laugh that could chase away the darkest clouds. She was the anchor I needed. The steady hand in a world that often felt like it was spinning too fast. For 5 years it was us against the world. We'd built a life. A comfortable little universe filled with weekend trips. Inside jokes. And whispered promises of forever. I genuinely believed I'd hit the jackpot. A promising career. A future shimmering with possibilities alongside Sophia. And a best friend who was more like a brother. Life, for a while there, felt unbelievably good. It all came crashing down on a Tuesday, if you can believe it. Not some dramatic stormy night, but a perfectly ordinary, even sunny, Tuesday evening. Sophia and I were at our apartment. The kind of comfortable silence between us that spoke volumes. Or so I thought. She was fiddling with a loose thread on the couch cushion. A nervous habit I'd always found endearing. But this time, her fidgeting felt different. Charged with an unspoken tension. "Liam," she started. Her voice barely a whisper. I looked up from my laptop. A question mark hanging in the air. She finally met my gaze. And a look in her eyes, it was like seeing a stranger. Lost. Uncertain. And filled with a pain that mirrored the sudden ache in my own chest. It's about Ethan," she finally managed. The words catching in her throat. My stomach dropped. Ethan? What could possibly be wrong? Had something happened to his family? Was he sick? My mind raced, conjuring up all sorts of grim scenarios. Yeah, I think I'm in love with him. The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. It was like the world suddenly muted itself. And all I could hear was the frantic thumping of my own heart. Love? With Ethan? My mind short-circuited. It felt like a cruel joke. A line ripped from a bad movie script. Surely I'd misheard. The hum of the refrigerator seemed deafening. The sunlight streaming through the window felt accusatory. My first reaction wasn't anger, not initially. It was pure, unadulterated disbelief. My brain scrambled, desperately trying to find some logical explanation. Some way to rewrite the sentence she'd just uttered. But the words hung there. Stark and undeniable. They clashed violently with everything I knew about Ethan. About Sophia. About us. How could this be happening? How could they? I wanted to explode. To roar. To demand answers. Every instinct screamed at me to confront Ethan. To march over to his apartment and tear him a new one. But something held me back. maybe it was the sheer shock. The paralysis that comes with having your reality completely upended. Or maybe, if I'm brutally honest with myself, it was a sliver of shame. A cold, creeping feeling that somehow I'd been blind. That I'd missed some glaring signs. No, scratch that. It was pride. I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. Of knowing how deeply they'd wounded me. Sophia's words kept looping in my head. A broken record of betrayal. We didn't mean for it to happen. What an insult. As if unintentionality absolved them of the deceit, the lies, the clandestine glances I'd been too oblivious to notice. The days that followed were a blur. A disorienting haze of heartbreak. And a slow burning fury. I felt like I was walking through someone else's life. A spectator to my own destruction. Ending things with Sophia was inevitable. It was a messy, tear-soaked affair. Filled with her pleas for understanding. Her desperate attempts to explain the inexplicable. But the trust was gone. Shattered beyond repair. I walked away. Not looking back. Even as her sobs echoed behind me. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to run. To escape the suffocating weight of her betrayal. Ethan, predictably, didn't bother reaching out. Maybe he thought I wouldn't dare face him. That the sheer audacity of his actions would silence me. And he was right. At least for a while. The thought of seeing him. Of looking into the eyes of the man who'd stabbed me in the back. Was unbearable. I did what any self-respecting, heartbroken guy would do. I buried myself in work. If love was a lie, if loyalty was a myth, then at least ambition could be trusted. The long hours at the office became my sanctuary. The endless spreadsheets and looming deadlines a welcome distraction. From the gnawing emptiness in my chest, weekends were spent networking. Pitching ideas. Immersing myself in the intricacies of my trade. It was a relentless, almost manic focus. But it was the only thing that kept me from completely falling apart. Pain, I discovered, is a potent fuel. Every ounce of heartbreak. Every tear I refused to shed. I channeled into building myself up. If Ethan and Sophia thought they'd broken me, they were sorely mistaken. And Sophia, well, she didn't deserve the real estate she occupied in my heart. I evicted her. Piece by painful piece. But the betrayal left scars. Invisible wounds that ran deep. The end of my friendship with Ethan wasn't just the loss of a buddy. It was the death of a brotherhood. A bond forged in shared laughter and whispered secrets. It was the gut-wrenching realization that someone I trusted with my life had twisted the knife with a smile on his face. Did I miss him? On some level, yes. It's strange to admit, but I missed the ghost of the man I thought Ethan was. The loyal friend. Not the betrayer who'd stood by me only to then stand over me, grinning as he took what was mine. Resentment became my silent companion. A shadow that followed me through boardrooms and late-night brainstorming sessions. Every business milestone I achieved, every dollar I earned, was a step further away from the vulnerable, naive version of myself they'd taken advantage of. They couldn't take this from me. Over time, I stopped keeping tabs on them. The urge to know. To inflict some digital form of pain by stalking their social media. Eventually faded. Occasionally, I'd hear whispers. Filtered through mutual acquaintances, snippets of their life together. A wedding in the Maldives, apparently. A lavish home in the suburbs. The kind of picture-perfect life they'd so callously built on the ruins of mine. But I refused to engage. Their existence was irrelevant to my trajectory. My focus was laser-sharp. Building something bigger than their betrayal. Something they could never touch. Still, late at night, when the city quieted and the silence pressed in, the what-ifs would creep in. Were they happy? Did Sophia ever think about me? About the life we were supposed to have? The future we'd so carefully planned? Did Ethan feel any guilt? A flicker of remorse for the devastation he'd caused? I tried not to dwell on these thoughts. But they were like persistent shadows, haunting the spaces between my triumphs. It's funny how betrayal shapes you. How it can forge resilience in the most unexpected ways. I learned to carry it, not as a burden, but as a reminder. A reminder of who I am now. And more importantly, who I never wanted to be. Ethan and Sophia's choices didn't just shatter our bond. They ignited a fire in me. A relentless drive that would burn brighter than anything they could ever imagine. That chapter of my life was closed. The pages brittle and torn. But the story wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. A decade can feel like a lifetime. When you live with the ghosts of betrayal clinging to your memory. 10 years. 10 years ago, Ethan and Sophia had detonated a bomb in the center of my world, leaving me amidst the rubble, picking up the scattered pieces. Back then, I didn't have a blueprint. No grand design. All I knew was that I refused to let their treachery define me. Today, standing in my corner office overlooking the city, I see the tangible outcome of those years of relentless rebuilding. I'm a man they wouldn't even recognize. Success didn't arrive with a fanfare. It was a grind. A slow and often painful ascent. In the early days, my office was a cramped space, barely bigger than a walk-in closet. I'd stare at spreadsheets for hours, fueled by lukewarm coffee and pure stubborn determination. Every small win, signing a new client, securing a crucial round of funding, landing a significant project, felt like a vindication. A defiant roar against the ghosts of my past. It was proof that my future wasn't theirs to steal. It was mine to forge. By the 5th year, my company had outgrown that tiny box. I moved into a sleek downtown space. The kind with floor-to-ceiling glass and panoramic views that screamed success. A silent testament to how far I'd come. But it wasn't just about appearances. I'd built something real. Something lasting. My company wasn't just profitable. It was respected. Industry leaders knew my name. Invitations to exclusive events and partnerships with household brands became the norm. Yet, for all my professional triumphs, my personal life remained intentionally quiet. People often asked, their voices laced with polite curiosity, why I wasn't married or even seriously dating. I'd deflect with a practiced laugh, offering vague responses like, I'm married to my work, or I just haven't found the right person. The truth was, trust didn't come easily anymore. Sophia had been the one person I thought I could trust with everything. And Ethan had been the brother I believed would always have my back. Losing them both in one fell swoop left scars deeper than I cared to admit. But I wasn't lonely. I'd built a different kind of family. A network of meaningful friendships with people who'd been by my side through the years. Who'd witnessed the rebuilding firsthand. I'd cultivated a network of allies, mentors, colleagues, and genuine friends who cared, who saw beyond the carefully constructed exterior. My success wasn't just mine. It was shared with those who believed in me when I wasn't sure I believed in myself. And then there were the rumors about Ethan and Sophia. I didn't seek them out. But in a world this interconnected, whispers find their way to your ears. Their life from the outside sounded perfect. Mansions, luxury cars, exotic vacations splashed across social media. Ethan had climbed the corporate ladder with unsettling speed, and Sophia had become a fixture at high society events, her picture gracing charity gala brochures. To anyone else, they seemed untouchable. But I knew better. You can't build true happiness on the rubble of betrayal. Their life looked gilded. But I often wondered how much of it was just for show. A carefully crafted performance to mask the hollowness beneath. I mostly avoided thinking about them. I wasn't bitter anymore. Or at least that's what I told myself, and mostly believed. But there were moments, fleeting as they were, when their shadows crept into my thoughts. I'd wonder, in the quiet hours, if they ever thought about me. About the collateral damage of their choices. Did Ethan feel a surge of pride when he looked at Sophia? Or was there a flicker of guilt in the quiet moments? Did Sophia ever compare her meticulously curated life, now, to the messy, imperfect, but genuine life we might have had? I focused on what I could control. My work. My legacy. The company I'd built wasn't just a business. It was a testament to resilience. I funded scholarships, supported charities, mentored young entrepreneurs. Giving back, I discovered, was a powerful antidote to bitterness. It reminded me that success wasn't just about accumulating wealth or achieving a certain status. It was about making an impact. About leaving the world a little better than I found it. I rarely allowed myself to dwell on the past. But there were nights when the memories resurfaced, unbidden. The betrayal didn't sting the way it once had. A raw, open wound. Now it was more of a dull ache. Like an old injury that flares up in the cold. I didn't hate Ethan or Sophia anymore. If anything, I pitied them. Their betrayal had driven me to achieve greatness. But what had it brought them? Wealth, status, perhaps. But did it feel as hollow as I imagined? As the 10th anniversary of the betrayal approached, I found myself reflecting more than usual. Not with sadness or anger, but with a strange sense of pride. The person I was 10 years ago. The heartbroken, vulnerable young professional with big dreams, would barely recognize the man I'd become. 10 years ago, Ethan and Sophia took everything from me. Or so they thought. In reality, they'd inadvertently given me the gift of clarity. They taught me who I could truly trust. And more importantly, who I couldn't. They showed me that resilience isn't about avoiding pain. It's about what you choose to do with it. And what I'd done with it was build an empire. One that no betrayal could ever touch. It arrived on an otherwise unremarkable Tuesday. I was at my desk, sifting through quarterly reports. The rhythmic tapping of my keyboard the only sound in the room. When Maya, my assistant, walked in with an envelope. Her expression was a mix of curiosity and amusement. As she placed it on my desk. "It's from the Summit of Innovators," she said. A hint of excitement lacing her voice. A personal invitation. I set my pen down. A flicker of intrigue replacing the focus on spreadsheets. The Summit of Innovators wasn't just another conference. It was the conference. An exclusive retreat reserved for the titans of industry. The visionaries. The disruptors whose names carried weight in boardrooms across the globe. I'd always admired it from afar. A distant peak on the professional mountain range. This was the first time I'd received an invitation. A decade ago, the thought of being included in such elite circles would have been laughable. Now I was apparently one of them. The invitation itself was a study in understated elegance. Embossed with gold lettering that whispered of prestige. I read through it twice, absorbing the details. A week-long retreat at a secluded, luxurious resort, nestled in the mountains. Access to unparalleled networking opportunities. Discussions led by some of the most influential minds in business. It was the kind of event that could unlock doors you didn't even know existed. Forging connections and partnerships that could propel my company to the next level. But along with the undeniable excitement came a prickle of hesitation. These kinds of gatherings, I knew, could often feel like elaborate peacock displays. A relentless performance of success, where egos were as inflated as stock prices. I wasn't sure I had the appetite for that kind of artificiality. "You should go," Maya said, as if reading the internal debate swirling in my mind. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." I nodded, leaning back in my chair. "I'll think about it." And think about it I did. For the next 2 days, I meticulously weighed the pros and cons. The logical versus the emotional. Part of me, the part that still carried the scars of past betrayals, wanted to retreat into my well-protected bubble, where I was in control, where I didn't have to navigate the treacherous waters of high society. But another part, the ambitious, relentless part that had driven me this far, recognized this as a significant opportunity. A chance to elevate my work and forge connections that could be game-changing. On the third day, I made my decision. "RSVP yes," I instructed Maya. A newfound determination settling in. And then, I began preparing. Not just logistically, but mentally. For a retreat that, unbeknownst to me, would lead me straight into the eye of a storm I thought I'd long since weathered. The resort lived up to the hype. A sprawling oasis of luxury nestled amidst breathtaking mountain scenery. It was a haven of sophistication and exclusivity. The kind of place where silence felt expensive. Upon arrival, I was greeted with the kind of meticulous, almost intrusive, hospitality reserved for the ultra-wealthy. The staff knew my name, my preferences, even how I liked my coffee. It was impressive, if a little unnerving. The first evening was a casual welcome reception. A carefully orchestrated opportunity for attendees to mingle, size each other up, and set the tone for the week ahead. I entered the grand hall, the murmur of conversation washing over me like a tide. The room was a kaleidoscope of tailored suits and designer dresses. A symphony of power and influence. I was mid-conversation with the venture capitalist, discussing the intricacies of sustainable investment, when I heard a voice behind me. A voice that sent a shiver down my spine. "Liam?" The voice trailed off, laced with a disbelief that mirrored my own sudden jolt. I turned slowly, my heart doing a clumsy somersault in my chest. And there they were, Ethan and Sophia. My past, resurrected and standing right in front of me. They looked older, almost the same, yet undeniably different. Sophia's beauty was still striking, but there was a weariness etched around her eyes. a subtle tightness to her smile. Ethan had gained a few pounds. The sharp edges of his youthful confidence softened, though his signature self-assured smirk hadn't completely vanished. The surprise on their faces was quickly replaced by something else. Something colder, unease. They hadn't expected me to be here, to be part of this exclusive circle. Why would they? 10 years ago, they'd written me off, taking what they thought was the best of me and leaving me for dead in the dust. I didn't flinch. I refused to show any reaction beyond a polite nod, a carefully constructed mask of indifference. "Ethan," I said evenly. "Sophia. It's been a long time." Ethan recovered first, his smirk returning, albeit a slightly strained version. "It has. I didn't expect to see you here." I shrugged, my tone deliberately casual. Life takes us in unexpected directions. Sophia said nothing, her gaze flitting nervously between Ethan and me. For a moment, the three of us stood in an uncomfortable triangle of silence, the weight of unspoken history hanging heavy in the air. Then, as if on cue, Ethan extended his hand. A forced smile plastered on his face. "Well, it's good to see you, Liam. We should catch up sometime this week." I shook his hand, my grip firm but devoid of any animosity. "Sure," I replied, my voice neutral. As they walked away, disappearing into the throng of attendees, I allowed myself a small private smile. They had no idea. Not yet. But this week was going to be far more interesting than they could possibly imagine.